And welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show. I'm Bill Tucker, filling in for Steve, who is on vacation this week, a well-deserved vacation, I might add. We have a lot to get to today, but right now I am joined by Frank Luntz, Republican pollster, founder and chairman of Luntz Global, and the writer of this, our Newsmax Magazine cover story, Millennials, the GOP's ticking time bomb. It is an article that is really interesting, and I'm glad we've got some time to talk about it, Frank. And I want to start first by, well, let me ask you, what did you find the most surprising when you sat down to do the research and look at this group of voters called the Millennials?
Well, first, it's ironic that you and I are both wearing these little pieces of cloth, when if you look at the cover, there's actually not a single person on the cover wearing one of these pieces of cloth. We are not like them, they are not like us. I think that the thing that I found most surprising and actually most upsetting is when I asked them which system for economics is the best for the country.
Right.
Socialism, communism, or capitalism. 9% chose communism because 1 out of 10 kids will say something stupid no matter what you do.
Right.
But the fact that only a third chose capitalism and more than half now choose socialism, we've been tracking this since 1992, and it has never been this way. People ask me, well, do they know what socialism is? And the answer is no.
Right.
But they know what they don't like. They know that they want free health care. They know that they want free education. They know that they want free job training. They want free everything. And to them, that's what socialism gives them. And capitalism doesn't. They don't want to work for it. They just want to get it. And it says to the Republican Party, your message is not working with 18 to 29-year-olds. They represent 19% of the electorate. And if you're losing them in this election, it could be 2-1. If you're losing them 2-1, how do you possibly win an election?
What do you lay that down to? Is it a lack of education? Is it a failure of literally the education system to lay out the terms and the functions of different economies, or what is it?
I don't even think the education system tried. I don't think there's any effort in this. These kids are not being taught government. They're barely being taught American history. There's a battle over the facts that they learn. So much of it is revisionist, and so they get a completely different narrative. And then, even more important than that, was one Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie is so old, it takes him an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes. Sanders is so old, his favorite painting is The Last Supper. He's the second waiter from the left. He's so old, the only time he doesn't have to pee is when he's peeing. And yet, this guy has completely changed politics as we know it. He connected to them in a way that was even tighter than Ronald Reagan back in 1984.
But I'm a big capitalist, and I have an argument.
Do you really want to call yourself that?
Yes, I do, because I have
sure?
a running argument. I have a running argument with a full-grown adult son over the systems of economies and capitalism versus socialism.
But you know that.
But I like Bernie.
But most people think that capitalism is about Wall Street rather than Main Street. Most people think that capitalism is about profit at the expense of people. The terminology has been so mislabeled and so destroyed. And frankly, some of the conservatives have done it to themselves.
Yes.
They call it crony capitalism. So people hear that. It's not. It's the lawyers and the lobbyists and the loopholes. Right. That's what's wrong. But when you use the phrase crony capitalism, it turns people off to the overall system of government. And the truth is, conservatives aren't winning on this. They're not even losing on this. They've lost on this.
But when you get down and you talk to somebody and you say, do you not think if you make a product and you sell a product, you don't have a right to earn off your own labor? You don't have a right to make a profit off of what you've built and are selling?
Yes, if I can be the voice of millennials, absolutely. But you don't have to have obscene profits. You don't need a $10,000 suit. You don't need someone waiting to take you from this studio to the next studio.
Right.
You don't need your private plane.
Well, those are values that I don't even have a disagreement with. They're absolutely right. And I think the own worst enemy in this is capitalism at its worst. It's corrupted. I think of it as corrupted capitalism. And they're right. You don't have a right to an obscene profit.
And so the attribute that millennials are looking for the most is accountability. Show me that someone who does it wrong or who takes advantage of the system or hurts others, they need to be held accountable. But you don't see that. You haven't seen it over the last 8 years. And
I haven't seen a Democrat hold anybody accountable either.
And the problem is that they blame Wall Street rather than Washington, even though it's this administration that has done so much damage to accountability and so much. They talk about the economy working. It doesn't work for a 21-year-old. They can't find a job. They've moved back into mom and dad's home, and they don't like it. and mom and dad don't like it either. And the opportunities that existed in the 1980s and 1990s under both Reagan and Bill Clinton simply don't exist today. But there's no sense of accountability, and they blame the CEOs on Wall Street for that.
But you're leaving me tongue-tied. So where do you go? If you're a political party, where do you go? Do you become the party that becomes, let's hold those people accountable?
But the first thing you have to do is you have to have people with a voice, and people with the look, and people with the feel of a 25-year-old. We're the people, they look at us and say, you're the ones who, I won't go trick-or-treating at your house because you send the Doberman out after us. We're the ones that are screaming out the window, turn that music down. So we've become the grandparents where they look at us and we don't relate to them, and the language is different. The technology is different. Again, I show the cover because they're all on their devices. They don't talk anymore. They don't look people straight in the eye. They walk across the street, they're looking down. We don't know how to talk to them. We don't use the right language for them. We don't understand their music. At the Republican convention, all we had was Kid Rock. At the Democratic convention, man, they had Katy Perry. I mean, they had people that generation
Democrats don't say anything. Look, Bernie said something that appealed to them. They don't. It's my sense from interviewing people, talking with people, and reading polls. They don't particularly care for Hillary Clinton any more than they particularly care for Donald Trump.
Because they don't think she's honest. They don't think that she understands them or cares about them. Because the worst thing you can do is be a phony. An 18 to 29-year-old, they're looking straight in your eye and they're trying to figure out: are you genuine and authentic? Are you real? Do you say what you mean and mean what you say? And they look at her and they know that she doesn't. Look, my goal in life was to be Secretary of Agriculture under a Sanders administration, because then I get to plant those magic trees where all that free crap grows from. I won't get that opportunity.
But nobody will.
And the message is, but then we have to teach them. And so step number one is to ensure that American government is taught in 10th or 11th grade. Step number two is to ensure that Economics 101 isn't taught in college, but taught in high school. And step number three is that you need to know the business leaders, the Fords and the Carnegies, and the people who built this country. We need to show them the kind of respect that we show to the politicians. These kids don't know who created the airplane. They don't know who created the television. They don't know any of this.
Then it's not the Republicans.
And by the way,
it's not the Republicans. It's not the Democrats. I don't mean to rush you on this, but we're pressed on time. It's the entire political system that is in jeopardy here.
Yeah, but the Democrats just seem to have a better way to communicate. By the way, here's what's interesting. The Republican senators are almost a decade younger than the Democrats.
Right.
So there is a possibility that we could find Republicans, I should say, who can communicate to them. But I just want to see, we had the youngest Republican member of Congress for 4 years, Aaron Schock, and then he had to leave in a scandal. We need to find people who understand the focus and the exceptionalism of the free market system, and we need to be able to find those who can communicate it. And right now it doesn't happen, which is why you need to read this, and it's going to upset you. So read it with a drink, or read it just before you go to sleep with a sleeping pill.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you can read it before you go to sleep, because I was reading it on the way in this morning on my commute, and I started getting aggravated, and I thought I got to close this up because I thought, Frank, what? I got very upset, and I thought, let's leave it at this. When I was 22, I was more radical than some of the people you talk about in terms of my politics and in terms of my economics. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more conservative. I followed that course of Winston Churchill's, so I like to talk about. What's to say that they won't follow that same course?
Yeah, but when you were young, Abraham Lincoln was president. As far as these guys right now, these are all jokes, by the way, it's okay to smile. When Lincoln...
I was thinking, no, it was McKinley.
The joke that I usually tell is it was Harrison, William Henry Harrison. And the problem is that no young people would even get that joke. They don't even know who William Henry Harrison was. Young people blame Washington. They blame Wall Street. And they're looking for someone to give them a positive, proactive, hopeful approach. Barack Obama hit it perfectly for them.
And he
lied. He
lied. And
but
he
my
didn't
question
deliver.
is, where is a substantial, honest, genuine Barack Obama in the Republican Party? Is it Marco Rubio? Is it Paul Ryan? I don't know. But those guys are pretty good. And it's going to be important that the candidates or the people who choose to lead the conservative movement, that they understand and can speak to this generation, because if they can't, they're going to be in the wilderness for a long, long time.
That's depressing, Frank.
It's the
I
least
was really
can do.
glad you came in here, but now I'm not sure
You know,
I feel
you
that
got
way
a bridge
about it.
right behind you. If you want to go climb up,
You
and
gonna sell
jump
it to me?
If I'm Bernie Sanders, I'll give it to you for free.
Free. It's all yours for free, Bill. Frank, thanks so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Always nice to have him, if it's not always a pleasure to talk to him. Well, you know, this week, San Francisco's 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, a multimillionaire in the NFL, garnered his share of the media attention when he chose not to stand for the national anthem this past weekend. Getting less attention is retired Marine Staff Sergeant John Jones. Here's his story. It all started with this simple tweet aimed at 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Hey, at Kaepernick7, I don't have legs, but I'll stand with enough pride for both of us every time my national anthem plays. The Twitter is from retired Staff Sergeant Johnny Joey Jones. He lost both of his legs when he stepped on an IED in Afghanistan in 2010. Well, it took no time for hate and anger to fill up at Johnny Joey's Twitter feed in reaction to the tweet. Many of them so vile that they don't even bear repeating. Maybe it's because social media is so impersonal that it facilitates hate so easily. Or maybe those spewing that hate don't know or can't comprehend that the man whose friends call him Triple J joined the Army because he felt strongly about defending the Constitution and Kaepernick's right to speak his mind, as well as his own. But Kaepernick clearly understands and values at least some of his rights, like, for example, the Second Amendment. Triple J spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. He was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan on 3 combat tours. He disarmed and destroyed more than 80 improvised explosive devices and thousands of pounds of other bulk explosives. The IED, which blew off his legs and severely injured his right arm, put him in Walter Reed Hospital for 2 years. While in Walter Reed, Jones started a peer visit program where recovering vets helped other newly injured vets get on the road to recovery. After discharge, he earned his college degree from Georgetown University. Jones is now the chief operating officer, along with his wife, who serves as the programs director at the charity The Boot campaign. Somehow, Triple J has managed to keep his sense of humor. When at Giselle's Ego tweeted yet another unrepeatable tweet, Jones fired back, "The lack of creativity and legibility of this would-be insult is exactly why we need to fight to better educate our kids." Which is why Mr. Jones gets the last word.